Welcome everyone to the secrets to building a referral network in 2025. My name is Hugo E. Gomez. I'm the founder of Abogados Now. We host webinars a couple times each month exclusively for attorneys who want to improve on their marketing, their business development, their operations, anything about essentially running a law firm, from solo practices to some of the largest law firms in the country who work with us. Now, if you're not too familiar with us, we specialize in Hispanic marketing, but that's not what today is about. If you are curious about Abogados Now, feel free to go to abogadosnow.com. It's all about Spanish lead generation for attorneys across the US. Today, we're going to be talking to Thom Singer. So Thom Singer is a professional keynote speaker who specializes in working with lawyers and teaching them how to create uncommon connections in a world that's increasingly digital. He's also the CEO of the Austin Technology Council. He's based in Austin. He's been there for about 30 years now. And his bread and butter is really working with firms of all sizes in terms of how to create better business development disciplines. So that's what today's about. It's all about getting you more referrals, getting you a better network. It's leveraging human connections, but also leveraging digital technology so that you can actually generate more income, generate more clients as a result of the relationships that you're building. This is for the super seasoned networker, all the way down to the attorney who really has no experience or maybe might be a little shy about doing so. And so with that being said, welcome to the program, Thom.
Thanks for having me, Hugo.
Awesome. So I want to get into, working with attorneys. I know you've been working with Fortune 500s. You've spoken at tons of events on this topic, but why lawyers? Why did you hone in on networking improvements within the legal community?
Well, early in my career, about 25 years ago, I was the business development and marketing director for the Austin and Dallas offices of two national firms that were both Am Law 100 large law firms. And I ran marketing and biz dev in the Texas offices. And part of my job became training the lawyers on how to get engaged in the community, how to build a referral network, how to build their reputation and their brand as an individual, as a practice group, as an office, and as a firm. And the more I did that, the more the lawyers started offering me to other clients to teach the same thing. So I started with lawyers, then I started doing it for other people. I left them to go work for a bank and then a consulting firm and started teaching the bankers and the consultants how to network and build their relationships. And then I started my own business. And for 14 years, all I did was speak at law firms, accounting firms, business associations on this whole topic of what I call human interaction. It's how do you get engaged with people in a world where everyone's online chasing likes, links, shares, and follows. The pandemic hit. And as you can imagine, if you made your living working face-to-face, whether it was speaking or coaching lawyers, there wasn't as much work. And so I ended up taking this role with this nonprofit tech association in Austin, which is a 30-plus-year-old kind of a community legacy organization. So I work with them, but I also kept my speaking and training business. And what I've done is, since I don't have the full time to do that, I've really focused back on lawyers because I like working with lawyers, and there's a lot lawyers can do if they really start paying attention to the human side of their practice.
Yeah, so you mentioned this on your website. You have a lot of collateral online about something called HI. So can you speak to what is this concept of HI with respect to attorneys?
Sure. Well, I call it human interaction, HI, in an AI-driven world. I mean, let's face it, every conference you go to, every article you read about marketing, every article you read about a legal practice, whatever it is you're doing, AI, every new company that's trying to sell to you, every vendor, it's like, oh, we're powered by AI. And that's great. I run a technology association. I'm in one of the biggest tech hubs in the country. Technology is important. And I'll tell you, and I'll tell all your listeners, the changes that are about to happen when it comes to technology that will impact our businesses and our society over the next 5 to 10 years are greater than what we've seen from mobile and the internet and everything else. I mean, what's happening with AI, what's possibly going to happen with quantum computing, it's going to change everything that we know and do. So number one, we've got to be paying attention to these changes. But number two, your secret weapon, if everybody has access to the same material, if everybody has access to the same marketing, if everybody has access, to everything through AI, your secret weapon is the relationships you build, the reputation you have, and the trust that underlies all of that with other people in your network. And so I've doubled down as society is changing. I've doubled down that your secret weapon today is your network more than it's ever been.
So what's the distinction? Like, what do you find unique within the legal community with regards to like network marketing, business development, separate from all of your other clients, to the extent that you've really doubled down in this cohort? Like, what's unique to them?
So number one is lawyers go to law school. They were probably pretty smart, did pretty well in high school. They did pretty well in college so that they could get into law school. They had to take the LSAT. So they're already kind of smart, and everybody sort of probably patted them on the back along the way and said, wow, you know, you're doing really well. You're really smart. You should go to law school. Then they get into law school, and it's a little bit competitive, right? They're every day, and at least it used to be, I don't know about now, but it used to be they would post after every test who scored the highest all the way down to who scored the lowest in the class. So everybody knew how they were doing against their peers. So the ones that were excelling, now they had public knowledge that they were in the top 50% or top 25% of their class. And then they interviewed to get internships or summer interns. And, you know, the ones that got the ones with the better firms and they got taken in, they were told, if you do good work and you're smart, it's all going to come your way. And usually, especially I work with like mid-size firms that usually have like, you know, usually my work is with firms that are going to have 50 to thousands of lawyers. But usually in those firms, you know, everybody's kind of been told, do good work and you'll get it. They come in as associate and the partners are feeding them work. Right. And then 7, 8, 10 years later that they're in line to be partner, or they're going out to start their own firm, and they look around. Nobody's ever taught them how to develop business, what sales is all about. And they think if I'm smart and I do good work, my phone's going to ring. And it's a big eye opener to the senior associate, the junior partner, or the person who's just hung their own shingle. They're not prepared for that. And it used to be, and this has changed a lot over the last 20 years, lawyers didn't look at the practice of law as a business. They thought it was somehow more like a calling, like going into the priesthood or something. It was above business. The big change now has been that anyone running a law firm knows that they have to pay attention to their P&L. Marketing and sales matters just like it does for any other company. And so I think one of the problems is that if you look at the corporate America, they know going in when they open a business that they have to have sales. Salespeople are some of the first people tech companies hire. But law firms don't think that way until they have to.
It's fascinating. Yeah, I talked to a lot of solos, mid-sized firm owners, and some, you know, I mentioned earlier, some of the largest law firms in the country, you know, use our services. And I find that they always think about marketing, or typically they think about marketing and sales when they're pulled into a corner, when they're cornered, like when it's like do or die, when it's like survival mode. And so I'm curious, like when you talk to attorneys that are in that space where they're now reevaluating or having, you know, an acceptance of the reality that they're running a business. They're not just running this altruistic organization. They're running a business that needs to be profitable. What do you find that they're lacking in terms of, let's just pull aside like business acumen, because that's developed over time. That's an ongoing thing. We're all learning that. But in terms of networking, like what is lacking most of the time, aside from just having enough contacts?
Well, Hugo, you're absolutely right that it is sort of a blindsided thing. They look around, they don't have enough business. Maybe they did, their phone rang for a while, then it doesn't. Or if they're in a small or mid-size or large firm, you know, they're starting to become a senior associate and they're like in their 8th or 9th year, and somebody says, well, what's your business development plan? Or how big of a book of business do you have? And they're like, well, wait, you've been feeding me work. So my phone rings for individual coaching with senior associates or junior partners, or someone who has hung out their own shingle in the last 2 years, who are going like, oh my God, I've been doing this for a decade. And I didn't realize that I needed to really focus on the sales. The other thing is they don't realize, and they don't think about, and they don't teach it in law school, that this is a people business. Most lawyers I talk to, when I say, how did you get your business? It came through referrals. Yes, depending on the practice area and the type of practice they have, it can be different. I know a lot of the people who you work with, you know, they advertise a lot and they have billboards, and that's great. It gets the phone to ring. But even those people will tell you the clients they get the fastest and the ones that they tend not to have to work hard to get are the ones where someone's brother recommended them, or their accountant recommended them, or their doctor, somebody made that recommendation who they trust, and that trust travels over. So I think one of the things they're not thinking about is everyone you meet along the way, you're in the grocery store, you're sitting next to someone on the plane, you're talking to somebody down the street, or if you're in a business setting, you're going to a chamber of commerce event or a bar association thing. Everybody you meet could be a referral source. And since most lawyers in every practice group get most of their business through referrals, I think there's a huge disconnect. They're not thinking, oh my gosh, I got to treat everybody well because everybody could help me. And when you look at the most successful lawyers, and there's some exceptions, but when you look at the most successful lawyers in any type of practice, doesn't matter if it's corporate law or whether it's litigation, whatever it is, if you were to reverse engineer the most successful people, and this is something I do when I work with people one-on-one, is I say, who do you admire the most, whether you know them or not? Let's reverse engineer their career. And almost always you find that they volunteer, they coach baseball, they, show up in their community. And one of the taglines I have is real leaders show up. You can't be a leader in your community if you just want to be in your office doing Zoom calls all day. There are times where you have to volunteer to be on a board. You have to help a charity. You have to help, your kid's baseball team, whatever it is. If you're visible, now you don't want to be the person who shows up everywhere and goes, hi, I'm a lawyer. Here's my card. I'm a lawyer. Here's my card. But if you're a good person and you're serving your community, people are going to go behind your back and go, hey, what does Mary do? Or what does Brian do? And so you want to make sure that you're thinking, I got to be not only a great lawyer, but I got to be a great civic-minded citizen.
That's fascinating. So when I think of being out and about, I like for lawyers, I think of like provisors or other peer groups or like local state bar events that, are at, you're dining out, they're going to a bar or something. You're saying go beyond that. You're saying meet other people that are outside of the legal space so that you can essentially market your name and likeness. So can you speak more about that? Like what are like a real life examples that you found with the attorneys that you work with doing this?
Well, a lot of it has to do with practice area. Some people, networking with other lawyers is where they get all their business because the big firms don't have their practice area. And so if someone's a personal injury lawyer, a big corporate firm doesn't have that. However, another word used for lawyer is counselor. And what happens is people who know a lawyer, they have a problem. They go to that lawyer for counsel and they call up. Same thing is true. I work sometimes with family law attorneys. Well, the big corporate firms don't have family law, but I ask corporate lawyers, how often does a friend call you and say, I'm going through a divorce. Can you help me? Because non-lawyers don't know what lawyers do. They don't realize that, one little area of the law. They think, well, my college roommate is a lawyer. I'll call him. So what happens is you get in this situation where somebody can refer you. And so for a personal injury lawyer or a family law attorney, networking with other types of lawyers might be your best referral source. I worked with one lawyer, great example. He was a divorce lawyer. And he had gone to Texas A&M University and he lived in Austin where the Longhorns are, where UT is. And he was involved a little bit with the A&M Lawyers Association. And this was before, and this is many years ago, before they had a law school at Texas A&M, but they had a association, kind of a networking group, cocktails once a month for people who had gone to A&M, gone somewhere else for their law school and now lived in the city. And most of his referrals came from other lawyers. And he said to me, do you think I should get more involved with this group? And I looked at him and I said, the two clickiest groups I know are lawyers and Aggies. And you have a group of lawyer Aggies. Of course you should get involved. You should get very involved. And he did. And it turned out to be one of his best referral sources. So for some lawyers, it is going to the bar association. It is going to these like full day CLEs where they can meet people in other practice areas. But some people, like the corporate lawyers I work with, a lot of their referrals comes from accountants, bankers, venture capitalists, private equity. So they need to network deep into the community. So it really depends on what I tell people is this. Since most of your business has probably come through referrals, make a list of the 10 biggest referrals you've ever gotten. Like who was the best client you ever got? And then look at who referred them. Well, they were referred by this type of person. And there's a pattern. Well, go make friends with other people like that. So for lawyers that I work with, if it's an accounting firm that refers the most business, go make friends with partners in like 9 other accounting firms. Think through who are the people who know my type of client. and where are they, and go there.
Is that one of the strategies that fall under uncommon connections? Because you speak a lot about this phrase, uncommon connections, or is that a separate kind of strategy?
Well, it all works together. The whole idea behind uncommon connections is we live in a world where everybody thinks a like, a link, a share, and a follow on social media or LinkedIn or something like that, those are business relationships. Well, no, those are likes, links, shares, and follows. It's a digital phone book. And, in the old days when we had printed phone books, I wouldn't take like the Los Angeles phone book and hold it up and say, look, I have 10 million people in my network because I have all of their phone numbers. Yeah. That's not a network. That's a phone book. And if you have just a lot of links to people you don't know in social media, that's not a network. That's just a bunch of digital links. So I call it uncommon connections because an uncommon connection is those few people, because it can't be everybody. You can't fully have an understanding, and they can't have an understanding of you in everybody. You can only have about 12, I think, people in your community, in your business community, who know you, like you, trust you, and understand what you need, and vice versa. Because the other thing, if you go out to network thinking, I'm going to meet all these people, I want them to send me referrals, it's not going to work unless you're sending them referrals. So it has to be, the creation of long-term and mutually beneficial relationships. So part of doing this is you have to get to know those people and know what they need. So if you get a lot of business, from somebody, you need to ask questions like, who's your ideal client? How do you find clients? How can I help you? Because if it's just me, take, those people are going to get tired of you really quick. So an uncommon connection is those few people in your business world who you got their back and they got your back, and they're always helping you, whether it's sending you business or just being an evangelist for you. Sometimes in our communities, whatever they are, whether it's a physical community like, Long Beach or, Pasadena or Austin, Texas, or maybe it's the legal community of Southern California, whatever your community is, sometimes you need people who are out there just talking you up when you're not in the room, saying, oh my God, do you know Hugo? Hugo's awesome. And his firm, if you're trying to reach Spanish speakers, because that's where most of your clients are coming from, and you're not working with Hugo, you're leaving money on the table. You're not even in the room. If someone's saying that, that's a win. So that's an uncommon connection.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So like there's building the network within the industry. There's talking to others in other verticals that are similar. Like what are the more unorthodox ways that you found attorneys to create these kind of uncommon connections?
So one of the things I've seen is it was in Canada. This guy who is one of the top lawyers now in Canada, when he was younger, he started an email list of young lawyers where every week he described what the cases were that were going on in the Canadian sort of law. Mm-hmm. So that every week you got an email updating you of what was going on in Canadian law, things that was being passed by the legislature, cases that were bringing in new precedent. And he just did that. There was nothing in it for him. He had his own little law firm, but he just sent it out. Well, everybody wanted to apply. And this is in the days before sort of social media and everything else, but everybody wanted to be on his email list. Well, you fast forward 30 years, he's one of the most successful, best known lawyers in Canada. So, but all he was doing was serving people with public information. I mean, it was information they could have gotten themselves if they wanted to delve into it. And as his email list grew, he just hired somebody to do it. He didn't have to do it himself. But every week that email went out. Another thing, during the pandemic, a lawyer who was like a leading lawyer in the cannabis space, when the pandemic first started, everybody was at home and everybody was baking. And for the previous Christmas, someone had given her, let's just call it cannabis-shaped cookie cutters for different things. You use your own imagination of what the cookies were going to be shaped like. So she was making cookies and she remembered these, she had these. So she made all these sugar cookies, by the way, regular cookies, not cannabis cookies, but she made them all, and she bought little boxes and mailed them out to all of the people in her mailing list saying, I'm stuck at home baking. I thought you would enjoy this. And every single person she mailed it to called her or emailed her. 100% of the people responded to these really cute. Apparently she was a good cookie decorator too, but everybody responded. And so what she did was she said, as long as the pandemic goes on, I'm going to have a weekly call for people in our space just to talk. Well, she didn't know this would go on for 2 years, but by just giving to her community, everybody was locked down. She sent a cute cookie and then she hosted a Zoom call once a week for everybody in the cannabis space. It skyrocketed her visibility.
Yeah, that's great. I think what both of those anecdotes touch base on giving
Giving.
first,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that, I mean, even our company, we totally agree with. Like our philosophy is we're going to generate. I mean, this program is free, right? It's there doesn't require any payment. It doesn't require anything for anyone to watch, but we're investing our time to promote it. We're investing our time to research guests like yourself. We're looking out for topics that are top of mind with attorneys that matter to our business. And so I think just giving it sounds like the first step in creating authentic connections. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. Just think about it in your own life. Let's take being a
Mhm.
lawyer out of it. Just think about your own life, right?
Yeah.
There are givers and takers. I mean, we all have had people in our life who are like, take, 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 take. We get sick of them. And the problem is there's more of them now than there's ever been. I mean, our society has shifted to this, influencer. Look at me, look at me, look at me, give to me. I talk to
Mhm.
these people who have big social media followings and they don't like or follow anyone unless they have more followers. Go look at someone's feed on these sites and they're followed by like 10,000 people and they follow 90. It's
Right.
because they don't want to give any cred to anybody below them. Well,
Yeah.
who's below you? When we start looking at other humans as I'm above them and they're below me,
Mhm.
the fabric of society doesn't work. So for those who use social media to promote what they do, and a lot of personal injury lawyers, that's a great way to keep your name out in front of people.
Right.
The question I have is go look at your social media over the last 3 months. When's
Mhm.
the last time you made a post that promoted someone else in your community? When's the last time you just promoted somebody else? Now, it doesn't mean necessarily a direct competitor, although sometimes that might be good too. But, as a professional speaker, I promote other speakers all the time because they're not really my competitors. If you're looking for someone to speak at a law firm on business development and building a brand, I'm great. But that's not what everybody's looking for. Somebody's looking for a stress speaker. Well, I don't speak on stress, but Eliz Green does. And she's the best trainer and consultant and coach on dealing with stress in the workplace. So I promote her. So I started a thing on my social media a long time ago called Every Saturday, Cool Things My Friends Do. So if you follow me on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
every single Saturday, if you go to my LinkedIn, because the algorithm doesn't share with everybody, that's the worst part of social media. It's not really social anymore. The computer decides who's going to see your stuff.
Right.
But if you were to go to my site on a Saturday, every week, you're going to find a post where I talk about something really interesting and cool that a friend of mine has done. Did they release a book? Did they win an award? Did they get put on the Inc. 500 for the fastest growing companies owned by a woman? Did they earn a special? The one that'll come out, it'll be in the past when this airs, but the one that'll come out next is the 30 or so people who earned the certified speaking professional designation, which is the highest designation a professional speaker can earn from the National Speakers Association. And every year, only like 20 or 30, there's only like 1,000 people in the world who have this designation. I'm one of them, but I've had it for 11 years. So I'm going to highlight the entire list of people. And in it, I will say, if you're looking for a great speaker, check these people out. I know some of them. I don't know all of them, but
Yeah.
some would say, well, Thom, you're a speaker. Why would you do that? You should be saying, I'm a speaker, hire me. I think people get sick of that. So my point, and I rambled, my point is go look at your social media and said, have I said anything good about someone else in the community that's not me or my client? And if the answer is no, ask yourself, am I a giver or a taker?
I love that. And so I want to recap like some main takeaways here. The first one is if you're not already talking to other attorneys, no matter how long you've been in business, you have to start that now. Like there are so many groups. There's your state bar organizations, there's local chapters, there's provisors. Everyone loves provisors because you can talk to CPAs, bookkeepers, other accountants who can also refer you business. But in that's just half of the job. The other half is you got to be able to give something of value to your peers, right? Otherwise, they're just going to see you as someone that's just taking. And so I think those are some really, really solid, pragmatic, like practical day one steps. I'm curious, like what's overlooked because there's networking events, there's social media, where you've said a lot of it's vanity metrics. Much of it is not actually moving the needle unless you're doing some actual work in it. What else is overlooked in terms of what attorneys should be doing with respect to building out their network?
So part of it is, are you writing educational information for people in your space? So, again, I know a lot of the people who follow your personal injury attorneys, are you just writing things of what to do if you're in a car accident? It doesn't say hire me. It's things you need to do, not about hiring a lawyer, but other stuff. You know this because you're handling everything for them. So you see the other things that are going on in their lives. Are you just providing value? So put things out there that are of value. So that's one thing. Another thing is just being a nice person to others in your community, letting people know that, hey, I'm not just a lawyer. Lawyers get a bad reputation, but there's a lot of lawyers who are leading on the volunteer boards of nonprofits in their communities. And yeah, it gets them visibility. So you could say, well, that's not altruistic because it's building their brand. That's what I call a win-win. It's helping an organization and it's win-win. And then the other thing is remembering that the foundation of everything is on trust. If you're not building trust, then you're not going to succeed over the long run, because if people don't trust you, especially in this world where everything is so superficial, and if you Google or go to a phone book or whatever and look for personal injury attorney, I assume in every community there's not just one. I think even if you're in a small community, there's dozens. So, and now a lot of these firms have rolled up and they're national. And so, you're looking for, it's not even someone in the Los Angeles area. You're finding a firm based in New York that, farms out cases, but they have great marketing because they have a lot of money. Well, if you're super involved and visible in your community, you're going to get the short list. And here's what I tell every lawyer. They worry about sales and leads. Sales and leads are important, or leads and sales, because leads would come first. However, it's not about closing the deal. The trick of everything I teach when I either come in and speak or when I'm working with a lawyer is, how do you get on more short lists? And people look at me and go, I don't know what you're talking about. But think about it. When someone's hiring a lawyer across practice lines, across whether it's corporate, whether it's litigation, whether it's HR, they can't talk to every lawyer in their region or their state because there's too many of them. So they're going to talk to, Hugo, how many do you think they're going to talk to in most cases?
3.
Yeah. The real answer is 2 or 3. Sometimes people tell me 6 or 7 in my practice group. Awesome. That's an outlier. But even if it's 6 or 7, if there's 40 lawyers they can choose from, and you're not one of the 3 or the 6 or 7, you're not one on the short list of 3 or 5 or whatever that they're talking to. You don't make that list. What is your chance of winning that client? 0. You don't have any chance of winning it if you're not on the short list. So what you want to do is think about, how do I get on the short list? You get on the short list by knowing who refers lawyers. You get on the short list by being visible in your community. You get on the short list by working with Hugo to make sure that your marketing is really good in front of the Spanish-speaking, population, so that when someone says, hey, you should talk to Becky, they think, oh, I've heard of Becky. I'll put her on the short list. So everything you do is building your relationship. But at the bottom of it, the foundation is trust. And one of the things I teach is, how do you build trust within your firm, with clients, and with your community? Because if people hear your name and the first thing that comes to mind is not trust, it's distrust, you're never going to make the short list.
I love that. I mean, so that's fascinating. I'm curious though, because when I talk about networking with other attorneys, they oftentimes associate networking with having to have extroverted personality traits. And so what do you say to attorneys that say, okay, I want to build, I'm trustworthy, I can give valuable content, I can be in service of my peers, but I'm quite shy. What do you say to them?
So here's the secret, and nobody teaches you this. And for those of you who are more introverted, and if we were standing together in a room, I'd say, raise your hand if you're more of an introvert, which is a stupid question because introverts won't raise their hand. No, but seriously, the trick that I tell everybody is, introverts are better networkers and better at building relationships. And when I say that in front of a live audience, you see people sort of recoil, like, what? That's not what I thought.
I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah. Introverts are better at it. And here's why. If you're talking to an extrovert, do you know what the extrovert's doing? They're thinking, what am I going to say next when it's my turn to talk? Because the extrovert wants to be in there sharing, telling the story, getting involved. When you're talking to an introvert, what are they doing? They're listening to the words that you're saying, because they need to know what you're saying so they can figure out what to say next, because they're not thinking about, how do I steal the show? And I'm an extrovert. I have to work on this. I have to work at being quiet, and I have to work at listening. Introverts are better listeners. Well, if you're a better listener, two things are going to happen. One is that person's going to like you more. They've done studies where they've sent people on blind dates, and you've seen this on like reality TV shows. They float a microphone in the beer, and they put a camera in the flowers, and they record everything. And they take them in different rooms, and they say, "What did you think?" The person who talks the most says, "I love them. I hope we get married and have 3 children." The person who talks the least says, "I don't know if I want to see him again." So if the person who's talking the most repels the other person, then the extrovert's at a disadvantage. And so the extrovert will listen. They'll ask more questions. They'll be more attractive, not in a dating type way, but in just a person-to-person way, to the other person. And if you listen more, you learn more about the other person, you're in a better position to help them a day later, a week later, a month later, or a year later, because you're going to remember what they said if you're paying attention and listening. So I tell the introverts, take it back. Society has told us that extroverts are better networking because they're the life of the party. They love to go get a drink. They'll stand up on the bar and talk to everybody. You're better at this. You're better at it because you'll listen and you'll pay attention and go into that room and take ownership of networking and realize that over a career, even though it's a little more work, because extroverts get their energy from being in a crowd, introverts get drained from being in a crowd. So you're going to have to realize that after you go to the networking event, you might have to go home and watch a movie by yourself, or, go to the spa, or whatever it is you like to do to recharge your batteries. But if you show up and you listen and you help other people, you're going to win over a long-term career.
I love that. So I feel like we're scratching the surface of everything that you teach attorneys in this space. So I just want to recap a few things. There's building trust. Personality traits are kind of irrelevant, but being an introvert sounds like a competitive advantage in the networking space.
It can be.
It can be. And you need to provide value. You need to be in these rooms. If you're not in these rooms, you're virtually invisible. So what if someone wants to start today? Like I love giving a takeaway that they can start today for anyone watching. So what do you recommend doing today? If someone's starting at 0.
Sure. So make a commitment that every single week you're going to attend at least 1, I think 2 networking events. So you're going to have to hunt for them, right? Depends on what you do. If you're a business attorney in your community, there's all kinds of business events. But if you're in something else, it might have to be more civic. Maybe it's going to a networking event that the symphony puts on or the ballet puts on, whatever you're interested in. Don't go to the symphony if you hate music. Pick something you're interested in. But where are professionals going? And then more specifically, where are the type of people who can refer you business going, or who could be your clients either way, or bar associations, or like you said, what was the group you mentioned? Advisors. Advisors. Find at least 4 groups that meet a month so that every week you have at least one thing to go to. There's also your Chamber of Commerce. There's also Young Women's Alliance, Young Women's Business Professionals, Young Men's Business League, whatever it is in your city. Find things that fit to you. So you're in person at a group, one thing every week. And if you really look in most cities, you can be slapping a name tag on it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's things out there that you can go to. Look on Meetup, look on the internet, talk to other lawyers, talk to your friends. Where do you go to network? What do you participate in? Make a list. So the first thing I do is I'd make a list, because you're going to need more than 3 or 4 groups, because you're not going to like every group. Not every group's going to be welcoming. You're not going to feel good about it. So start checking groups out. So that's one. The second thing is every week you need to do 3 face-to-face meetings. People are like, 3, I have to billable hours. I have a lot to do. Look, you can meet people for a business setting, for coffee or breakfast, for lunch, or for happy hour every single day. So if you take out Friday afternoon, because you don't want to go to happy hour on Friday afternoon, you want to get home to your wife and kids, your husband and kids, so that the Friday's out. Okay. And you're like, Monday morning, that's bad because people will forget. Okay, we'll take that out. So you essentially have 13 spots a week where you could go and connect with somebody. So just realize that breakfast, lunch, or dinner, 3 times a week, you need to get on someone's calendar for a 45-minute face-to-face. Now you're like, well, who should those people be? You want to start making a list. Who are the people who already refer you business? Who are the people who are like them? And then who are the people you don't know that you kind of need to know in the community? Create a list of about 50 people and just start trying to build relationships. But going to coffee with them once isn't going to do crapola, because here's the thing. Meeting someone once does not, remember this, meeting someone once does not make them part of your network. Do you know what it makes them if you meet somebody once?
What's that?
Most people tell me an acquaintance. I don't even think it's that.
True.
Meeting someone once makes them someone you've met once. And there's a big difference between someone you've met once and someone who you've cultivated a long-term and mutually beneficial relationship with. So realize that you're going to have to be around people either at a group networking where you talk to them a little bit, or face-to-face grabbing lunch or going to some event together about 7 to 10 times, not before they're part of your network and your best friend, but before they even remember you exist in the world. We're all being exposed to people all the time. How many times you've gone in and you say, oh, hi, I'm Tom. And somebody goes, oh, nice to meet you. And you're like, oh, we actually met 2 years ago. People are coming and going in our life all the time. It takes 7 to 10 times before we even notice that you're there.
Right.
So you're going to have to find ways to get in front of these people who you either already the people you already have a good relationship with, great, cultivate it. But the people who are like that next circle out, that next tier, find reasons to get in front of them, take them out for a drink, do whatever it is. And then the people you don't know yet, it's harder because they're harder to meet. But once you meet them, figure out a follow-up. So you have to cultivate relationships, and it doesn't happen in one meeting.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so, and to put this in context for attorneys that work in like family law, immigration, bankruptcy, I can name several case studies where attorneys go to their local churches, or they go to like a women's group, or they talk to something fairly small. We're talking like members between like maybe 20 and 100, but they show up fairly regularly, not just because they want to be a part of the network, but because they see themselves as a participant in those groups, right? They're not just visiting. They're a part of the group, and it's an authentic relationship. And as a result, they get, Chapter 7 leads and immigration leads and family law leads and divorce leads, adoption leads, etc. And it's because they're just there. Then they're being their authentic selves, and it's so much easier than people want to believe it is.
And think about what you just said. All those types of practice areas you talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Bankruptcy lawyers, family law lawyers, personal injury lawyers, they're all small business people. Most of them are either solo or they're in a firm of 3, 4, 5 people. Right. But here's the thing. If you're a family law lawyer, you don't do personal injury. But your family law clients, grandma has a car accident, they call you. Then you refer it to your friend who's the thing. Same thing is true for the personal injury. Oh, he handled my brother's accident case at work. Now we're getting divorced. Oh, I don't do divorce, but my friend Brian does. So show up and realize that all these people, if you can help them and they can help you, and don't keep score. You might make 3 referrals and that person never makes a referral to you. And you're like, oh, they don't help me. Well, you know what? You just helped your client. You helped your client find the best possible option. Don't worry if they don't repay it. Because over time, other people will repay it. People know who the givers are. Trust me. In your community, whatever community it is, whether it's a faith community or whatever, who the people who are there with the right purpose, And you know who the people who are there who are manipulating.
People know who. I think that's a great place to end on, because it kind of rolls up into that one quote. People really do know who's providing value to you, the community, the business community, etc. That's fantastic, Tom.
And the last thing I'll say is it's that human interaction. Every time you interact with people and you make them feel good, you have a shot that you've planted a seed that could lead to something. And every seed's not going to grow into business. But if you plant no seeds, you get no business.
Love that. So Tom, if an attorney wants to talk to you, get coached by you one-on-one with a group of their attorneys, maybe like-minded attorneys in a peer group, what's the best way to reach out to you and go layers deeper into this topic, plus a bunch of other business development topics that we haven't even touched base on today?
They can find me at thomsinger.com, and I have a little tab about working with lawyers, and my email's there, my phone number's there. So that's always the best place to start. They can, I have a YouTube channel they can link to that shows, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't just work with lawyers, but you can scroll through and find a lot of advice videos for lawyers.
I love it. Tom, thank you so much for being on today's program. Thank you for everyone who watched. Again, go to thomsinger.com. Tom works with attorneys, corporate attorneys, solos, mid-sized firm, large law firms. If you want to be coached on this topic or other business development related issues or really goals in mind, talk to Thom. This is the guy that knows how to do it. So thanks so much again, Thom. And to everyone else, we'll see you on the next one.